Picture this scenario. It's the mid-90s, you flip on Fox, and there's a guy surfing a blue vortex between alternate Earths where the Soviets won, antibiotics never existed, or America is still part of the British Empire. Sliders was a show with one of the coolest sci-fi premises of its era that slowly slid into chaos, studio meddling, cast walkouts, and a finale almost nobody was happy with. Today we're breaking down what Sliders was, why it captured so many imaginations, and how a chain of bad decisions and behind-the-scenes drama turned a cult classic into a cautionary tale.
I've got a full plate full of problems, and I have not got time to waste on a hunch.
Sliders should have been untouchable. A charismatic lead in Jerry O'Connell, a heavyweight genre actor in John Rhys Davies, and a sandbox where writers could ask, what if? On a cosmic scale. Instead, it became a textbook example of how executive interference, inconsistent vision, and messy network politics can derail a promising sci-fi show. For those who need a reminder, Sliders is an American science fiction series created by Tracy Torme and Robert Weiss that ran from 1995 to 2000. It aired its first 3 seasons on Fox, then moved to the Sci-Fi Channel for its final 2 seasons. At its core, the show follows a group of travelers who slide between parallel Earths using a vortex controlled by a handheld timer. The device was supposed to bring them back home, but an early miscalculation sends them endlessly hopping from world to world, never entirely sure if they've made it back to their own Earth. Each episode drops the team into an alternate history. For example, worlds where the British won the American Revolution, worlds infested with dinosaurs, or where gender roles are flipped. This gave the early seasons a strong Twilight Zone meets Quantum Leap vibe. Early Sliders had something special. The first 2 seasons leaned into alternate history and social commentary, exploring how one different decision could reshape society. Fans remember episodes that tackled corporate power, authoritarian governments, and cultural differences. Within the creative team, there's a general consensus that seasons 1 and 2 are the strongest, and what followed represented a shift away from the show's original vision. But behind the scenes, storm clouds were already forming, and they started with Fox. From almost the very beginning, Sliders was in a tug-of-war between its creators and the network. Tracy Torme has described being in a constant battle with Fox to maintain the show's integrity, from its tone to its humor to even the makeup of the cast. Fox pushed for more action and spectacle and fewer serialized or concept-heavy episodes. They wanted episodes that could be aired in any order, which meant downplaying ongoing story arcs and character development. According to retrospective accounts, delays in producing the second half of the first season came partly from Fox demanding stronger action elements and more flexible standalone plots that undermined Sliders' budding serialized structure.
Wade Wells is my commanding officer and my lover.
Damn!
On top of that, Torme has blamed corporate meddling and scripts from non-sci-fi writers who he felt didn't understand the premise or genre, leading to increasingly generic storytelling. If you've ever heard fans talk about where Sliders went wrong, Season 3 is usually ground zero. The show's nature changes noticeably. The early focus on alternate history and social norms gives way to more conventional action, monsters, and pop culture knockoffs. Episodes start referencing big movies and genres instead of exploring what if this one historical event changed. Even members of the creative team have pointed to Seasons 1 and 2 as superior, with Season 3 representing a regression into recycled sci-fi tropes. Actor John Rhys Davies, who played Professor Arturo, has been especially blunt in his statements. He felt the writers were squandering a rich premise by reusing well-worn ideas instead of fully exploiting the potential of parallel worlds. This creative frustration would soon have consequences. John Rhys Davies was the first major cast member to leave, and his exit symbolized deeper problems. He departed in the middle of Season 3, and Arturo was killed off in an episode that many fans still debate, partly because the show had previously teased an imposter, Arturo, from another world. When one of your most respected actors leaves not over money, but over the writing, that's a serious warning sign. Despite decent ratings, Fox canceled Sliders after its 3rd season. Thankfully, the Sci-Fi Channel picked up the show for Seasons 4 and 5. You'd think a dedicated sci-fi network would be the perfect home. But by this point, the show was already carrying a lot of damage, cast turnover, a shaky creative direction, and a fractured fan base. One of the most controversial shifts was the disappearance of Wade. When Sliders moved from Fox to the Sci-Fi Channel after season 3, Lloyd did not return as a regular. Officially, the explanation was simple. Her contract wasn't renewed in the transition between networks, but unofficially, things seem a bit messier. For example, allegations that Lloyd did not get along with Carrie Vurer, who played Maggie Beckett. There were also claims that Lloyd wanted a higher salary, and that the network only needed one regular female character, with the choice ultimately favoring Maggie. None of this has been fully confirmed, but the end result is clear. Wade is written out between seasons, later revealed to have been captured and experimented on by the Cro-Mags, and only briefly returns via voice-only work from Lloyd in a later episode. Her physical presence was also portrayed by a double rather than the actress herself. This whole thing felt cruel to the character and emblematic of the show's increasingly chaotic decision-making. To make things even worse, Jerry O'Connell appeared in the majority of the series, but he did not stick around for the endgame. By the end of season 4, he reportedly felt that the core of Sliders had been lost. When Sci-Fi Channel and O'Connell could not come to terms, the network and producers made a dramatic choice. In season 5, O'Connell's character Quinn is effectively replaced by a new character simply called Mallory, who is a merged version of Quinn and his brother. This allowed the show to continue with Quinn in a technical sense, but without Jerry O'Connell himself. This also meant that by season 5, only Cleveland Derricks remained from the original cast, and the series was almost unrecognizable. Another pivot that divided fans was the introduction of the Cro-Mags. They were a race of dimension-hopping conquerors intent on dominating the multiverse. On paper, this sounds like a natural escalation, a recurring villain species that can follow the Sliders from world to world. But in practice, it became another symbol of the show's inconsistencies. After years of sliding, Sliders ends with a finale that feels more like a setup for another season than a conclusion. In the final episode, the team meets a man who has been watching their adventures as visions and has turned them into a kind of cult phenomenon on his world. The Sliders open a wormhole that is unstable, with only enough power for one person to slide. Rembrandt chooses to go through alone, hoping to bring a pathogen to his Earth that will defeat the Cro-Mags. We never see if he survives or if his mission works. It's a bold ending, but for many viewers, it felt like yet another frustration. After 5 seasons, the show leaves both its overarching war and its characters in limbo, seemingly hoping for a letter-writing campaign and a 6th season that never came. The failure of Sliders was due to a multitude of issues. There was constant executive meddling and identity confusion, inconsistent writing and vision, cast turnover and behind-the-scenes drama, network whiplash and budget constraints, unresolved arcs, and a non-ending finale. Despite all this, the concept has held on in pop culture memory. John Rhys Davies has even expressed openness to a revival as long as the show is properly managed. If you talk to fans who grew up with Sliders, you'll hear a lot of the same story. I love this show, and I'm still mad at what they did to it. And that's what makes it fascinating to look back on. A show that had everything it needed to become a sci-fi legend, but instead it became one of television's most interesting missed opportunities. Do you enjoy this type of content? Then please give it a like. It really helps a ton. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more awesome stuff in the near future. Until next time.